Okay, let's unpack this. If you look at the major business disruptions of, say, the last 2 decades, the shift to subscription media, the instant access you get from ride sharing, the ability to effortlessly rent a place across the globe, what connects all of them isn't just, technological wizardry. It's a complete revolution in mindset.
Hmm.
These companies succeeded because they stopped selling things and they started selling guaranteed outcomes.
That's a great way to put it, the outcome.
Think about it. A major tech company didn't just sell you a phone, they sold a seamless, locked-in ecosystem. It manages your communication, your finances, your entertainment.
Right.
Or a streaming service, they didn't sell shows. They sold instant gratification and personalized discovery. This fundamental shift, this move from a transactional product sale to a long-term relationship-based outcome, that is the central challenge for every legacy organization today.
It really is.
So the subject of this deep dive is a really powerful strategic white paper that provides the executive blueprint and, crucially, the underlying financial framework for tackling this shift head-on. We are diving into the architecture of what it calls the Customer Experience Integrated Operating Model, or CEIOM for short.
CEIOM, right.
And our sources suggest that most established organizations are currently struggling. They're kind of trapped between two outdated models.
I see this all the time.
First, they are locked into selling these siloed products in one-time transactional bursts. They hit the quarter's sales target and then poof, they move on.
And the customer's forgotten.
Exactly. And second, they confuse basic siloed customer relationship management, or CRM, with true holistic end-to-end customer experience, CX.
Right. They think buying a CRM tool solves the problem.
It doesn't. They treat customer service like a cost center, not a strategic lever for growth. So our mission today is to understand how organizations can break free from this, build a unified CEIOM strategy, and, this is the important part, generate truly exponential revenue growth by embedding customer experience into the organizational core.
It's not just an add-on.
No, it becomes the very engine of the business.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the paper is fundamentally challenging the way, say, a CFO or a CEO typically budgets for customer experience.
How so?
They often look at CX investments in a very linear way. We invest X amount in faster service, we hope to see a Y increase in customer retention, and that's the end of the calculation.
A simple input-output model.
Exactly. And this paper argues that this thinking is severely limiting. When CX is executed correctly, when it's truly integrated, the value is not just additive, it's multiplicative.
Okay, so it compounds on itself.
Precisely. It's about how an investment in, say, efficient after-sales support creates a positive feedback loop that then lowers the friction for the sales team, which in turn frees up resources for innovation. This compounding effect, this synergy, is what unlocks those exponential returns we're talking about.
And the white paper defines two major themes behind this, right?
Yes, two big overriding themes that really necessitate this whole transformation. The first is what we've already touched on, the strategic pivot from product to solution.
Right.
This is about organizations realizing that the customer doesn't actually want the hardware or the software. What they want is the comprehensive, guaranteed solution to their core business problem.
So they're moving away from these fragmented offerings where a customer has to piece together products from 3 different divisions and
deal with 3 separate contracts. It's a complete nightmare for them.
Yeah.
Instead, the focus is on a complete wrapped solution that addresses their needs over their entire lifetime as a customer.
Okay, and the second theme?
The second theme is the shift to end-to-end customer experience, or CX. This is the recognition that the customer journey isn't some kind of baton pass between separate departments, marketing hands off to sales, sales hands off to service.
It's one continuous, fluid relationship, and the cost of that fragmentation must be massive, right? I mean, if your marketing team promises something that your service team can't deliver,
It's a disaster.
or if the technology stack prevents the sales rep from seeing the customer's full history, the entire relationship just suffers. The customer immediately knows they're dealing with a company that's just fighting itself internally.
That's the core issue. The most successful organizations today are those that appear totally unified to the customer. When you stream media, for example, the recommendation engine works whether you're on your TV, your tablet, your phone.
Yeah, it knows you everywhere.
It knows you. The company recognizes you and your history instantly. That seamless continuity, which traditional cable providers, who are highly siloed, often struggle to replicate, that is the blueprint for the entire CEIOM strategy.
It's powerful stuff, and I think Many listeners probably associate seamless customer experience mostly with, consumer technology, but the source material is very clear. This strategic imperative, this need for integration, is often even more critical in the B2B world.
Oh, absolutely. The stakes are so much higher.
The customer needs are more complex, and the potential lifetime value is, it's just much, much higher.
Absolutely. Think about companies that traditionally sold highly specialized industrial equipment. They sold the machinery, they booked the revenue, and that was that.
Sell and forget.
The sell and forget model. Now, they're being compelled to offer a complete solution that packages that hardware with necessary services, ongoing maintenance, and proprietary software. It becomes a full, guaranteed operational ecosystem.
And that brings us perfectly to the frameworks that enable this strategic shift. The source focuses on two: customer experience as a service, or CE, and the underlying concept of the customer journey-centric business model. The tech world pioneered this as a service model years ago. Software, infrastructure, platform, all shifting from capital expenditure to operational expenditure. Now we are seeing the trend clearly move towards Cs. But what does Cs actually look like in practice? What's the operational reality?
C is really the operational realization of that whole solution over product theme we just discussed. It's built on three fundamental pillars that require a really intentional organization-wide commitment.
Okay, what's the first pillar?
The first pillar is foundational: understanding and mapping the customer's journey across their whole lifetime. This means seeing far beyond the initial purchase order. It demands tracking every interaction, every sentiment, every value delivery point for years, not weeks. It requires deep, almost ethnographic research to understand the customer's world.
That sounds like a massive data challenge. Especially in large enterprises where customer data is often fragmented across half a dozen legacy systems.
It is a massive challenge. And that complexity is exactly why most companies struggle to move past traditional CRM, which leads to the second pillar: identifying all direct and indirect points of engagement.
So not just the obvious stuff.
Not at all. This includes everything from the moment they first see your advertising, which is indirect, to a quick self-service interaction on a knowledge base, all the way to a complicated multi-day troubleshooting call, which is very direct. You have to catalog the entire ecosystem of interaction, especially the points the customer thinks are minor but might actually cause major friction.
Okay, and the third pillar?
And the third pillar is the action step: providing a deliberate service at that engagement point that makes the customer's experience memorable. And this isn't just about being nice. It means designing a service that reduces effort, that resolves issues rapidly, and that adds tangible value every single time the customer connects.
It sounds like the defining characteristic of C is this combination of intentionality and proactive design. You're not waiting for a customer to break a product. You're designing a system to proactively intervene before the breakage even happens, guaranteeing the outcome they paid for.
Precisely. And this leads directly to the core requirement for implementing CS.
Yeah.
Adopting what the paper calls an outcome-driven business plan.
Okay.
If you don't clearly define the specific, measurable outcome you are striving for on behalf of the customer, your investments will just be scattered and reactive.
And the sources have some good examples of this.
They have excellent examples. Imagine an organization that sells highly specialized industrial machinery used in manufacturing. If the leadership team defines the desired customer outcome as efficient utilization of the product, then the strategy just follows logically from there.
So how do you guarantee that?
To measure and guarantee efficient utilization, the organization has to invest in monitoring tools, things like industrial monitoring devices, the Internet of Things, or IoT embedded right in the machinery. This gives them real-time data on adoption, usage patterns, efficiency rates. They invest in IoT not because it's some buzzword,
but because it's the necessary tool to measure the agreed-upon outcome, which is efficiency.
Exactly. The technology choice is a consequence of the strategic outcome, not the other way around.
Right.
And the strategy has to be dynamic. If that IoT data reveals, for example, that a significant portion of customers are experiencing frequent, unpredictable machine malfunctions, then the priority outcome for the business has to evolve immediately.
It's no longer just about efficiency.
No, it shifts from efficient usage to something like guaranteed, seamless uptime with a pleasant after-sales service experience.
So what does that trigger?
To achieve that new outcome, the organization then needs to pivot its investment into sophisticated technologies like predictive maintenance and remote diagnostic capabilities. The initial investment in IoT pays off by revealing the next necessary outcome-driven investment. This constant recalibration, dictated by customer data, is the real engine of a successful CES model.
That structural example perfectly illustrates how the desired customer outcome acts as the strategy director. It's a compelling contrast to organizations that just buy IoT because their competitor did it.
And we see this radical operational shift played out most vividly in large-scale B2B industrial usage. The white paper details a case of a major European manufacturer of compressed air system.
Okay.
Historically, their customers would purchase an entire compressed air station, a massive seven-figure capital expenditure. The customer took on all the risk, all the maintenance headaches, and the eventual disposal costs.
It was a huge burden.
A huge burden. This manufacturer fundamentally disrupted its own business model. They shifted from selling the hardware, the product, to selling a guaranteed utility. The solution. They introduced a packaged service program that treated compressed air itself as a utility, like electricity or water.
So wait, instead of owning the asset, the customer just pays for the actual consumption of compressed air meter style.
Precisely. This is air as a service for industrial usage. The manufacturer retains ownership of the hardware, which means they are now fully incentivized to monitor the performance, manage all the necessary predictive and preventative maintenance, and guarantee the operational output.
So the customer's core problem.
Their core problem, needing a reliable volume of compressed air to run their facility, is solved comprehensively. And they don't have to worry about asset management, capital depreciation, or unexpected downtime. It is a pure and very profitable shift to solution centricity and CES.
That is the ultimate illustration of value transfer. The customer is paying for peace of mind and guaranteed utility, which is what they actually needed all along, not a giant machine sitting on their factory floor.
And this leads us to the critical shift required internally to actually scale this vision. It's about overcoming what the paper calls the growth paradox.
The growth paradox.
Yeah, what's often overlooked is that the customer journey-centric business model isn't some complex theoretical ideal. It's actually how almost every successful startup begins. They are naturally organized around solving one or two specific customer pain points. Their entire small organization is inherently solution-centric.
But the moment they scale, that purity just seems to dissipate. That's the growth decay paradox you mentioned, where structural needs start to overshadow customer needs.
Absolutely. The source highlights that when an organization scales moving from, say, 50 employees to 5,000 and then maybe to 50,000 efficiency, demands the creation of functional departments. Sales, marketing, manufacturing, IT, finance, service. This is an organizational necessity.
Sure, you can't have 50,000 people in a flat structure.
Right. But these new departments inevitably begin to focus inward. They develop their own siloed processes, their own internal key performance indicators or KPIs that often conflict with other departments.
Oh yeah, sales wants to sell anything, and manufacturing wants to make one thing perfectly.
Exactly. And they develop their own distinct leadership priorities and, most damagingly, their own incompatible technology systems. And then acquisitions come along and just turbocharge this complexity by adding entirely new foreign data stacks.
So the organization slowly, almost unintentionally, shifts from being a customer journey-centric business model to a fragmented business division-centric business model. You see the functional boundaries, but the customer just sees a broken experience.
That's the classic symptom. The data is inconsistent. Marketing uses one system, sales uses another, service uses a third. A customer calls to troubleshoot a machine, and the service agent has no immediate record of what the sales representative quoted them or why they purchased that specific configuration in the first place.
It's infuriating for the customer.
It is. And in an attempt to fix this, large organizations try these quick patches. They invest in small bits of integration software, hoping to force disparate systems to talk to each other. They create roles like the chief customer officer, tasked with imposing a holistic view from the top down. But these are superficial solutions.
Band-Aids.
They're just Band-Aids. They treat the symptoms of fragmentation without addressing the root cause, which is a structural and a financial model failure.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the paper argues that for a large enterprise to adopt and sustain a true customer journey-centric business model at scale, it has to be powered by a completely integrated operating model, the CEIOM.
Right.
It can't just be an overlay. It has to be the architecture of the business itself. And crucially, the success of the CEIOM is defined by achieving 3 specific quantifiable strategic objectives at the same time.
Simultaneously, yeah.
And these objectives are the financial drivers, and they become the foundational variables in the mathematics we'll get into later. So, driver 1 is objective, A. Increase customer lifetime value, CLV, with a subscription-based revenue model. This is kind of the defensive strategy. Maximizing the profitability and longevity of your existing customers by securing that recurring revenue.
Locking in the base.
Exactly. Driver 2 is objective, B. Increase net new sales growth. This is the offensive strategy. Improving efficiency in customer acquisition and shortening that sales cycle.
Getting new customers in the door faster.
Right. And driver 3 is objective, C. Accelerate top-line growth with new revenue streams. This is the innovation strategy. Creating entirely new, repeatable profit centers, often by monetizing service or data. The challenge, as the paper lays out, isn't just achieving these 3 things, but ensuring they actually reinforce each other.
And that reinforcement, that synergy, is where the exponential returns are hiding. Let's look at the deep dive case study provided in the source material, because it shows how a company intentionally pursued these 3 drivers in concert.
Okay, let's do it. So this organization, which we'll call the robotics company, manufactures automated equipment for 2 distinct markets. Consumer robots, B2C, for tasks like smart home cleaning, and commercial robots, B2B, used in really demanding environments like large hospitals or specialized manufacturing facilities.
Got it.
For years, the robotics company operated on what the paper bluntly calls a sell and forget model. The entire sales organization was laser-focused on one thing, closing big, one-time transactions for new equipment. The net new deal.
Transaction.
Purely transactional. The incentive structure meant the moment the sale was complete, the sales rep had 0 incentive to maintain the relationship. The customer was immediately just handed off to a separate, isolated service organization.
This model was structurally vulnerable, and that vulnerability became critical when customer expectations just accelerated dramatically. The paper notes the massive cultural shift toward instant gratification that was driven by seamless consumer technology. Customers expected everything from product information to complex service responses to be immediate, personalized, and perfect.
And what's fascinating is how the failure of one department immediately cratered the performance of another.
It was a visible downward spiral. When the robotics company, operating its siloed model, failed to meet those instantaneous service expectations, the negative feedback became viral. Poor service issues led to scathing online community reviews and digital media complaints.
So then, when the sales reps tried to get new customers...
Exactly. When sales reps approached prospective new customers, those buyers who were already doing their own instant research online would pull up those negative reviews. This created massive sales friction. So objective B, net new sales growth, suffered a significant decline.
And the existing customers.
Well, because they felt abandoned after the sale, they had 0 brand loyalty. When their expensive commercial or consumer robots reached the end of their life cycle, they just switched to the cheaper or seemingly more responsive competitor. This resulted in a total collapse of repeat business and lost renewals. Objective A, customer lifetime value, was hemorrhaging. The company was basically forced into a radical integrated reinvention.
That's the critical juncture, realizing that service failure directly undermines future sales success. You have to address the CLV problem, which is A, before you can realistically fix the net new sales problem, B. Let's look at how the robotics company strategically addressed these 3 drivers, starting with that foundational element.
Okay, so let's focus on objective A, increasing customer lifetime value, CLV, via subscriptions. The financial goals here were clearly defined. Increase revenue per customer, decrease the cost of sales per customer by making existing customers less expensive to serve, and, of course, boost retention rates.
So how'd they do it?
The key strategic move was abandoning transactional sales and simple leasing. They built robust, recurring, scalable revenue streams anchored to usage-based subscription service bundles. They weren't just selling the robot anymore. They were selling the ongoing capability of the robot.
And to justify that subscription fee, they had to add a lot more value.
A lot more. They introduced supplementary hardware-specialized, attachable arms that could convert the machine into a powerful vacuum for industrial grime or a complex scanner. They also elevated their service support, shifting from relying on outsourced, untrained third-party vendors to high-tier packages, providing direct support from their own specialized in-house technical experts.
I want to pause on the software component here because that's often the highest margin differentiator. How did they tailor the subscription software for their different market segments?
That's a great question because the software really defined the service in Cs. For their B2C robots, they launched cloud-based software that enabled specialized functionality, maybe a language-based feature allowing the robot to read stories to children, constantly updated with new content.
That's sticky.
Very sticky. It created an emotional recurring revenue stream. For the B2B commercial robots, the software value was driven by operational efficiency. They offered powerful cloud-based packages that performed complex visual modeling computations, which is crucial for companies in design, rapid prototyping, and large-scale facility layout planning.
And this software wasn't just bundled in.
No, it was a subscription that scaled with the customer's number of users or their processing volume. But the true driver of CLV was the inclusion of predictive maintenance in the premium service package.
So getting ahead of the problem.
Getting way ahead. Through integrated monitoring technology, the robot itself could detect anomalies and warn the customer and the robotics company's service team that a specific component was likely to fail in the next 2 weeks. This preemptive intervention allowed maintenance to be scheduled and performed proactively, guaranteeing uptime and vastly improving the customer experience.
That is the ultimate goal of the as-a-service model, converting reaction into prevention. You go from having an expensive crisis every few months to having guaranteed operational predictability. Now, how did this massive investment in existing customer value in A directly feed into objective B? Increasing net new sales growth. This is where that synergy starts to pop up.
It created seamlessness and trust. The company recognized that all the new products, the specialized arms, the storytelling software, the guaranteed uptime, would only lead to new sales if they were incredibly easy to access and transact. If the service was phenomenal, but buying was a nightmare, the synergy would be lost.
Right, one hand washes the other.
Exactly. So they invested heavily in their digital presence. They launched sophisticated unified e-commerce portals for both B2B and B2C segments. Customers could browse the expanded product and service portfolio, configure highly complex commercial robots right on the website, selecting the appropriate subscription packages for monitoring and software, and manage their entire order lifecycle online.
That self-service capability is crucial. It must have reduced the load on the sales team for all the routine tasks, letting them focus on high-value conversations.
Absolutely. It created an engagement hub that immediately boosted the potential for cross-selling and upselling the new monthly subscription revenue potential, so A and C. But more importantly, they fixed the internal sales friction.
What did that look like?
They implemented a sophisticated, mobile-first Salesforce automation solution for their sales reps. This was not some standalone application. It was directly connected to the back-end systems, logistics, inventory, and finance. A sales rep sitting across the table from a prospective customer could now configure a highly specialized robot, include the necessary usage-based subscription tiers, provide an accurate quote instantly, and process the order right there.
Shortening that sales cycle is a direct impact on revenue growth on B. I mean, previously they might have lost the sale because it took 3 days to get a finance-approved quote back.
Exactly. The internal and external processes synchronized perfectly. Customers received a personalized website experience that felt informed by their industry, and when they finally engaged a sales representative, that conversation was meaningful, it was informed by real-time data, and it was frictionless. This not only accelerated the sales cycle, but also improved internal metrics like sales forecast accuracy and the perfect order fulfillment rate.
So they could promise more because they could deliver more reliably.
The confidence in their delivery system, powered by the service data they were now collecting, allowed them to promise more and deliver reliably.
So better service, A, reduces the sales friction, B, and the technology platform used for sales, B, enables the subscription revenue models, A. That's the definition of synergy in action. Let's complete the circle with objective C, accelerating top-line growth by new revenue streams.
This is where the service organization became a revenue driver. It transitioned from being a perennial cost center to a dedicated profit center. This required a major internal cultural and financial realignment.
A huge shift in mindset.
Huge. The service teams weren't just fixing things anymore. They were selling enhanced capabilities. They began actively selling value-added service maintenance packages, specifically the continuous robot monitoring via IoT. This meant every piece of equipment they sold became a steady stream of data-driven, recurring revenue.
And the software side.
Moreover, the cloud provision software packages, like the visual modeling features for B2B, were designed for scalable billing. Customers could incrementally increase the number of users or the intensity of usage over time, resulting in a natural, steady increase in recurring billing revenue without needing a new capital expenditure.
So they didn't just sell robots anymore.
By focusing on continuous engagement via subscription-based products, the robotics company didn't just sell discrete B2B or B2C robots. They sold ongoing operational capability, paid for monthly. The strategic objectives, A, B, and C, all merged into one unified identity, selling robots as a service.
That transformation is staggering. But it does raise a question. Isn't calling service a profit center just another way of pushing costs onto the customer? How did they ensure the customer wasn't just paying more for things they used to get for free?
That's a critical challenge, and the paper addresses it by emphasizing value. The customer is paying more for ongoing service, yes, but they are paying for predictability and risk mitigation, not just repair. They gain the guaranteed uptime and the freedom from asset management liability.
Ah, so the incentive structure is flipped.
Completely flipped. The manufacturer is now incentivized to make the machine last longer and perform better. It shifts the financial equation from a transaction where the manufacturer wants a rapid replacement sale to a long-term partnership where the manufacturer is actually penalized by failure. The added cost is justified by the guaranteed outcome.
That makes perfect sense. The value is transferred from capital expenditure and risk to operational expenditure and guaranteed uptime. But here is the critical pivot of the paper. We've shown how the three forces A, B, and C work together in the case study. Now we have to look at the financial proof why integration is mandatory for exponential growth, not just, incremental improvement.
Exactly. What does this synergy actually look like on a spreadsheet? Traditionally, when executives evaluate strategic investments, especially big digital transformation or IT projects, they rely on the classical financial calculus, the net present value, or NPV, using the discounted cash flow methodology.
The DCF model, right?
Right. In simple terms, this involves calculating the present value of expected future cash flows and making sure the internal rate of return, the IRR, is greater than the company's cost of capital. You maximize payback and positive NPV.
The core limitation, though, is the assumption built into that model, isn't it?
Yes. The traditional model assumes linearity. It predicts that if you invest X dollars in a project, you will get a relatively predictable linear cash flow stream, CF. But in today's hyper-competitive landscape, merely achieving linear returns is a recipe for stagnation. A successful strategy has to aim for exponential growth to truly differentiate itself and capture market share.
Okay, so how does the paper model that exponential growth?
The paper introduces the financial model for exponential revenue growth driven by customer experience, and the formula is R0, 1 plus FABC.
Okay, let's break that down. So RAY is the total revenue generated by the new customer experience model over time, and FABC is the uplift factor derived from the performance of the three strategic drivers we discussed: CLV, net new sales, and new revenue streams.
That's the core concept. The paper simplifies RAYA-BC, just calls it CECL, the customer experience uplift factor. This CEL factor then provides the essential exponential boost to the traditional linear NPV calculation. The new formula becomes NPVCC plus NPVL.
So customer experience is now quantified as an active, mandatory component of the overall revenue strategy.
Yes, and the key is in how that CE factor is calculated. It has to be exponential, not just additive. The three factors must operate as a unified system, what the paper vividly calls a symphony orchestra.
And they quantify that symphony mathematically.
They do, by expanding the function of the three drivers, VA, B, C, CE, plus beta.P, plus gamma.C, plus SEAD.
This equation is pivotal, so let's dedicate some serious time to breaking it down in plain language, moving away from complex financial jargon. This is the blueprint for the business case.
Okay, think of it like a capital project. The variables alpha, beta, and gamma represent the incremental investment made to facilitate strategies $20 and $10, respectively. So, for example, gamma is the capital investment in the cloud infrastructure that allowed the service organization to sell new software packages, which is driver.
N to dollars and dollars are the resultant revenues generated by those three strategies.
Exactly. Now, if you stop right there, the model would simply be alpha, A plus beta.B plus gamma.CO. That's the linear, traditional cost-benefit analysis. You invest in Salesforce automation, and you track the revenue uplift from net new sales. You invest in predictive maintenance platforms, and you track the revenue uplift from subscription renewals.
But that linear thinking completely misses the profound feedback loops we saw in the robotics company case study. It misses the fact that the predictive maintenance also makes the sales rep's job easier and faster.
Exactly. And that's where the final variable, S, or synergy, comes in. Synergy is the added value, the exponential return, created specifically by the cohesion and mutual reinforcement between the three strategy drivers. It is the geometric and financial bonus that occurs when the systems, processes, and people supporting A, B, and C are perfectly aligned and multiply each other's effectiveness.
I love how the paper visualizes this complexity using the tetrahedron model. It takes this abstract mathematical concept of synergy and makes it geometrically visible.
It's a great visual.
For those unfamiliar, a tetrahedron is a three-dimensional figure with four equilateral triangular faces. The paper suggests visualizing the three strategic drivers, CLV, net new sales B, and new revenue streams, C, as forming the base of this figure. The investments, so alpha, beta, gamma, they anchor those base points.
And the height of this geometric structure is everything. The peak of the tetrahedron represents CE, customer experience, the total organizational outcome. And the height of the figure, rising from the center of the base to the peak, is represented precisely by S, synergy.
Right.
The insight here is what they call the tetrahedron effect. The structure remains stable, tall, and high value only if all three forces at the base are working equally and cohesively. They act like three legs of a stool. If one leg is shortened, the whole structure just tips over.
So if the robotics company invested heavily in the predictive maintenance, A, and in new software streams, but they neglected to integrate their e-commerce platform with their internal sales tools, failing on B, what happens geometrically?
The corner representing net new sales, dollars, is effectively pulled away from the center. The geometry collapses immediately. The entire figure tilts, and the height, velars, reduces significantly. This means the value of CE key falls, and that coveted exponential growth just disappears. Regardless of how much revenue the single investments generated, the multiplicative effect is lost.
It's a compelling warning against siloed investment. You might have a world-class capability in one area, but if the foundation is not integrated, the exponential returns are literally impossible to achieve. The Zia-Tau factor has to be actively managed and grown.
Precisely. If you fail to create the height, you are left only with the linear sum of your three investments, which, as we discussed, is not enough to maintain a competitive advantage today. The failure to integrate is the hidden cost of lost exponential growth.
Okay, so that understanding has to lead to some practical requirements.
It does. It leads directly to the final strategic considerations outlined by the paper. The three practical requirements necessary to generate and sustain that synergy, that $6, and maintain the tetrahedron effect. Synergy is not a happy accident. It requires specific, intentional, structural, and technical effort.
So what's the first one?
The first critical requirement is organizational structure changes. The paper is unequivocal on this. Relying on the existing rigid hierarchical structure is inherently insufficient because that structure is what created the silos in the first place. You cannot organize by product line or geographical silo and expect a seamless customer journey.
But how does a massive organization overcome decades of deeply ingrained departmental hierarchy without causing complete chaos?
It requires a strategic blend of organizational design. The source suggests shifting toward a blend of matrix and special task force organization structures specifically dedicated to solving the customer experience strategy. The structural change must always be anchored to solving the big customer problem, moving budgets and reporting lines away from functional areas and toward the actual customer journey segments.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Instead of having separate VPs of marketing, sales, and service, a matrix structure might assign project leaders who manage the entire customer experience for a specific vertical segment. That ensures those three drivers, ABC, are coordinated and measured under one umbrella, which forces cross-functional collaboration.
Right, and the second requirement must be technology.
The second, and perhaps most vital consideration for generating synergy S, is establishing an integrated technology landscape. This is the practical glue of the tetrahedron. The paper explicitly warns that if the base of the strategy, the three drivers, is technologically disconnected, the synergy S will inevitably collapse.
So this means just buying a new piece of software for the sales team isn't enough, right? That software needs to instantly talk to the service data.
Absolutely. Investment has to be holistic, enabling true end-to-end digital transformation, rather than the piecemeal approach of buying individual software solutions for individual silos. If you invest in sophisticated cloud software for your customers, C, and a state-of-the-art mobile application for your sales reps, B, but those two systems can't exchange real-time data on customer behavior and service needs.
Your internal cost of service might actually go up.
It could skyrocket, counteracting the revenue you just gained. The technology must enforce the cohesion. Think back to the robotics company. The e-commerce portal, B, succeeded only because it was fully integrating with the logistics and finance systems, ensuring the promise made digitally could be fulfilled physically. This technological harmony is what maintains the geometric height.
So the technology isn't just a tool for efficiency, it is the central nervous system that dictates the flow of information across the three drivers, and thus the exponential return. That brings us to the final requirement. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
Exactly. The final requirement is holistic measurement. If leadership only measures the three individual revenue streams, 8I and 10 separately, they will manage them separately. They need a system that tracks integrated performance, the cohesion itself.
And this is where frameworks like the balanced scorecard come in.
Right, moving beyond purely financial metrics. Specifically, the paper suggests leveraging a sophisticated method for quantifying this cohesion, which they call the 5 senses score approach. This framework links the soft, strategic components of the CEIOM to hard, measurable, holistic outcomes.
The idea of the 5 senses score sounds a bit abstract, so let's walk through the structure to make it concrete. How do these 5 sensory elements actually quantify that invisible factor of synergy of S?
It works by ensuring that every strategic element, from the highest level vision down to the ground level customer interaction, is quantified and contributes to the overall cohesion score.
Okay, so the first sense is sight.
Right. Sight represents the organizational vision, the long-term financial roadmap. Its measurable KPI is return on capital employed. This links the strategic vision directly to tangible financial efficiency and accountability. It ensures the CEIOM strategy isn't just about feeling good, but about maximizing shareholder value from the capital deployed.
Okay, next is hearing.
Hearing represents the go-to-market engagement model, essentially how well the organization is truly listening to the customer's voice. The key performance indicator here is the Net Promoter Score. This tracks not just satisfaction, but the customer's willingness to recommend the service, which is a powerful predictor of future revenue streams, C, and net new sales, B, growth. If the organization isn't hearing the customer, the strategy will drift.
Then we have touch.
Touch represents the strategy blueprint, the detailed execution plan for how the journey is mapped and delivered. Its measurable KPI is customer lifetime value. C, this is the direct tracking of objective A, ensuring that the structural changes and service investments are demonstrably succeeding in maximizing the value of existing customers over time.
And what about smell? That seems like the most abstract one.
Smell represents brand perception via organizational communication. It is that intangible sense of what the company stands for, the story it tells, and how consistent that message is, both internally and externally. The KPI is brand equity. High brand equity directly lowers the cost of customer acquisition, which feeds back into objective B by making the sales process easier and cheaper. If your brand smells good, customers come to you.
Makes sense. And finally, taste.
Taste represents competitive differentiation. This is the proof that the CEIOM strategy is unique and difficult for others to copy. Its measurable KPI is growth in market share, G. This is the ultimate proof of relevance, confirming the success of Objective C by showing that the new revenue streams and solution packages are actively stealing market share from competitors.
So these 5 metrics, they're all intertwined.
Exactly. By tracking them, the organization can mathematically define the total synergy score. It's defined as a summation of weighted components from these 5 senses, S1R bait plus S2N plus S3C plus S4B plus S5GIC. This forces the business to manage the intersections of the 3 revenue drivers, ensuring that the brand promise, the financial vision, and the physical execution are all aligned, thus maximizing the height of the tetrahedron.
That brings us to the end of this deep dive. We started by looking at the seismic shift facing business leaders, moving from selling fragmented products to delivering comprehensive solutions, and upgrading from traditional siloed CRM to end-to-end customer experience, or CX. We saw how a company like the robotics company achieved a full CEIOM transformation, embracing the as-a-service model to turn its service organization into a continuous profit center via predictive maintenance and subscription offerings. They focused equally on increasing CLV, boosting net new sales, and creating new revenue streams. All at once. And ultimately, the paper provides the high-stakes mathematics behind this change. That customer experience is not a linear cost. It is an exponential multiplier. The true competitive financial value, the CE, is driven almost entirely by the synergy, the C1 created when the three core strategic investments are technologically and organizationally integrated, ensuring they reinforce each other.
The critical takeaway for you is this. The investment in the three individual areas, the money spent on predictive maintenance, the budget for automation software, the funding for new digital platforms, all that is foundational. But without that technological and organizational cohesion, the returns will remain stubbornly linear.
They'll never get that exponential lift.
Never. Which raises an important question for you, the learner, to truly mull over. If your organization is currently investing heavily in boosting customer value, driver A, and spending huge sums on net new sales campaigns, driver B, but those systems, your data streams, your process handoffs, and your people don't seamlessly communicate, how much exponential revenue are you leaving on the table?
It's not just an efficiency loss.
No, it's so much more. Think about the actual quantified cost of failing to achieve that synergy. You must look beyond the immediate P&L statement and ensure that your entire integrated operating model is designed to support the maximum possible height of your strategic tetrahedron. If your structure is flat, your growth will be too.